Well, hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Dunswell Zoo. And this time we have left South America and returned to Australasia, which is, of course, our Australia and New Zealand area of the zoo. Currently in the Australia house. Pretty happy with how everything is in here. We may be changing one of the platypus habitats to house an aquatic species of lizard from Australia. I haven't 100% decided though yet, so we shall see. We shall see. In other news, everything else in here is pretty fine as it is, to be honest. You know, the Tasmanian devil habitat, this one I quite like. I don't think it needs anything else. This one, it maybe could do with a bit of a change in planting, but I'm not in a major rush for that. But instead, we are going to be working on the nocturnal house. So we're just over here at the back of the Australia house, and we're going to be working in here. So there is already one habitat in here. We are going to be editing that one slightly as well, which is, of course, the greater Bilby habitat. There aren't any greater Bilbies in here. Greater Bilby. Yeah, the genetics aren't fantastic, so there aren't any greater Bilby in here yet. I will keep adjusting that until we get some in there. And I also might change this habitat. So it's made based on the Bilby's requirements in the game, but looking at how Bilbies are kept in zoos and wildlife parks as well as their natural habitat, it's a lot more sandy and dirty. Not dirty, but more dirt and more sand. Whereas in the game, they tend to prefer more grass. So I might tweak this habitat slightly. But that might not be this episode. We shall see how we do for time. Then, of course, we've got the eastern quoll. We're going to be building their habitat today. Let's just go into the... There we go. So it's endangered. It's found on the island of Tasmania. We can have up to 5 males and 5 females. And they can have up to 3 young. And they can't be mixed with anything. So I'm thinking we do either 2 habitats, or we just make this one big habitat and include an offshore area that staff would access from here. Those are my thoughts. We shall see. But yeah, the eastern quoll is what we're going to be doing this episode. Then next episode is going to be the kiwi, which have this habitat here. Again, this may be 2 habitats. We'll double check. Kiwi is vulnerable. And they can have up to 2 males and 2 females. And can have up to 2 young. So 2 males, 2 females. Let's say they're 4 young. So they need 340 maximum. This is definitely bigger than that. So we might be able to get 2 habitats in here. Then there's going to be a little bit of a... I call it a pavilion. It's probably not a pavilion. A little bit of an area here where there's going to be some kiwi statues. Some benches. Some vending machines. Just because, obviously, if you've walked from here through all of this without visiting the little food shops there, you're probably going to need something to eat and drink at this point. So just something nice to relax and just chill, yeah. Got a little staff area here, so we're going to have our vet, quarantine, trade centre, keep a hut, staff room. Then we're going to have a walk-through habitat in here for the bettong. We may be able to make this a bit smaller. I'm just thinking of the size. And they're not actually included in the nocturnal house, other than its indoor area, which is here. The takahi, or the takahe, they're going to have a couple of habitats, because you can only keep up to 2 at a time for some reason. So there's going to be a couple of takahi habitats along here. Monorail's going to come in. Food court, there's going to be another monorail station, which is going to act as a... First of all, it works for Planet Zoo because it's near food, and that's the way the guest AI works, to seek out like food and drink and stuff when they need it. So transport being there makes sense. There's also going to be a conservation station here, and it would also serve as the last stop on the Australia line to access the wallabies and the Australian sea lions before it heads into Africa and then Asia. But over the few weeks, probably a couple of months up ahead, that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be working on finishing the Australia Zone. And after that, but before the tour, I'm probably going to spruce up these 2 habitats. I've been doing some maintenance on the South American habitats because it's Maintenance May in Dunswell Zoo. I'll just show you one of them really quickly. So I've spruced up the giant anteater habitat. Now it looks like this. You'll have seen this already if you follow me on Instagram. So we've got our 2 female giant anteaters in here. And this is what their habitat looks like now. And I really like how it looks. I love it. Actually, it's great. And I've also changed the inside as well. So they've got separate sleeping areas should they want to. Got some new education. Got some anteater adopters. Viewing for this side, of course. So that sort of improvement I would like to make to the dingo and the emu and kangaroo habitats. I also need to change the fence on the habitat here. I like it, but it's not very practical, is it? The kangaroos could jump over it. Guests can put their arms over it and get bitten by emus, so it needs changing. Anywho, let's crack on with the eastern quoll. So, I've never seen quolls in person. I didn't even know there was a thing until I started planning the animal roster for the series. They aren't really kept in captivity all that often. I think there were only 2 places in the UK where you could see them. I think that's only 1 now. There's a couple of places in Australia where you can see them in captivity. So I didn't really have any inspiration for this habitat, and I didn't have any awareness, if you like, of what their habitat in the wild was. So it was a lot of research. So we're going to go for like a leaf litter kind of mid-planted nocturnal habitat. Everything in here is nocturnal. That's what we're going to go for. It's going to be quite different to everything I've built before, because quolls spend a lot of their time on the forest floor, but not all of it, so we can have a bit of verticality to the habitat, but not much. I don't want it to be really much taller than what this is. So it's going to be quite challenging, but we shall see. We'll see what we can get away with and see what we can do. Anyway, I've spoken for too long now, so let's crack on with that speed build. So let me start by telling you that the eastern quolls are by far one of the hardest animals I've had to build an enclosure for. They're just so small, and I'll show you how small they are. Yeah, that is the major issue that I encountered. It's not that they're nocturnal, it's not that they're very rarely kept in captivity, it's simply the size of the animal. They just get lost in the habitat. So I do end up splitting the habitat into two. I'll get onto that later on in the video. So the eastern quoll then, medium-sized apparently. It's carnivorous and a marsupial, of which there aren't many of them. And it's one of 6 species of quoll. They are endemic to Australia and occur in Tasmania. They were declared extinct in mainland Australia around 1963-1964. But the species has since been reintroduced in Victoria and the Australian Capital Territory in 2003 and 2016 respectively, in fox-proof fenced sanctuaries. So eastern quolls are described as being about the size of a small domestic cat. You can hear my cat in the background, speaking of cats. So adult males measure about 53 to 66 centimetres in length. Females are significantly smaller, however, generally the case with sexual dimorphism. In mammals anyway. I would argue that the quoll in the game is too small and it needs to be scaled up to match the descriptions of the quoll, which is the size of a domestic cat, because they're not in the game. They're just not. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting the background in now, because I want a custom background, and let me tell you that as good as an idea as it is, and as good as it actually turns out in the end, don't do it. So I've just stopped the speed build briefly. You're gonna laugh. Well, I am anyway. So I've put the staff area in, and we're just using some of this space, and I'll put some of the Australian animals in there. In fact, let's go for exhibit and continent Oceania. Death Adder, blue lizard, brown snake. We've got the cockroach and we've got the monarch already. I might just put the 3 in, you know, there's only 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, screw it, let's do it. Let's live a little. And then we want another one. I like a star. That's going to improve massively. Let's change the light colour to blue, because we are going to be nocturnal after all. And it's slowly picking up. Yeah, I think that's a nice colour. Yeah? Bobby Dazzler. Next one, we'll go for lizards. Blue tongue lizard. We will have this female. Is that the best bet for a male? Let's clear this out, and that might. We've got another female. So we'll take this one, and we'll take this one. So 2 females in there. And let's go to the Zoopedia. What can they have? Just the 2. So we'll have to get rid of one of the females. And which one are you? Genetics, that's what I was looking for. Fertile but not particularly long living. That's Grace. So Lucy is same story again. tell you what we'll do. We'll get rid of Grace because she's older. And we'll try and find a male. It doesn't matter. They're not a breeding pair. With their least concern, but it will get us some money. And then we want to go on to this, we want to go on to that. We want to give them all the hiding places, except maybe the first one. Yeah. Put lots of basking lights in, some fallen trees. Let's just crank that up to 55. Crank that up to 30. Customize. Light colour blue. It's a shame we can't change the basking light colour though. That's unfortunate. So we've got them set up. We will return it back to daylight. Got a toilet in there as well. So here's what you're going to laugh at. So I've put the habitat in. I'm going to do a custom background. Look how small they are. I mean, first of all, there's something to do with the rendering. Because the face looks really weird, look. Just where my cursor is. There, and then when you get closer it disappears. So we've got 2 males, 2 females. I do want another one of this colour morph, which is called fawn. But yeah, I'm going to do a custom background. And yeah, they're just really small. So I think what I might do is put some more in. Just because of the size. I think we're going to need some more, personally. What have we got here? Some injuries have been discovered. Yeah, they're just so small. I wasn't expecting them to be this small. But they are absolutely tiny. So, yeah, definitely I think adding a few more would help guests be able to see the animals a bit better. They can only have up to 5 in a group, I think, but let's see what we can get away with. Does it actually say anything in the Zoopedia? What am I looking for? Quoll. Small domestic cat. They're smaller than cats. Rainforest, heathland, alpine areas. They prefer dry grassland and forest mosaics bounded by agricultural land. Social needs. Solitary predator, hunt at night for its prey of insects, small mammals, birds, reptiles, nocturnal. Pairs of adult females are sometimes encountered. Territories, females possess relatively shallow, fair-lined pouch. Right, plan B then. Because they have way more than enough room. We split the habitat in 2. So that this... Is that the right one? Yeah, so that this becomes the back. we'll do is what's that? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We'll knock that out. We shall extend this further. I hate that this grid thing keeps resetting. That's going to be the windows. When I'm cleaning windows. Take this right back. So we're going to have 2 quoll habitats. We will go back to the speed build in just a second, don't worry. I'm just showing you all how difficult my life is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So we will change this down to 2. 1, 2. Bear with me, I haven't lost the plot quite yet. There we go. And we're going to do that. How is that misaligned? No idea. Huh? And then we're just going to do the same. Yeah. I just want to check something else before we get back. So they need more sand. That's absolutely fine. So they need lots and lots of sand. And it's Oceania. There's 3 blueprints off. Oh good, we can use some of the new tropical plants. Brilliant, right. So planting's not going to be a problem then. It's just a little bit of terrain. I am probably going to reduce these indoor areas. I mean, it's all indoors. But yeah, I just laughed as soon as they was in the habitat. I was like, oh my god, they're so small. They're tiny. There's no way that this is about the size of a domestic cat. Absolutely not. I don't know where Frank is, but I'd get Frank for scaling. But yeah, there's no way that... no, these animals need scaling up a little bit. If they're meant to be the size of a domestic cat, like, ankle height is not a domestic cat. I have a cat and she's higher than my ankle. She's at least like, what, maybe a third up my shin. So it should be about that high. So either the description's wrong or the animal size is wrong. But domestic cat would come... So that's the kneecap. Domestic cat would come up to about here, probably. Whereas that would probably come up to about there. Wow, that's so small. Anyway, yeah. Speed build time again. So, welcome back to another part of the speed build. And we'll pick up where we left off. So, I'm putting the one-way glass in now, and we're going to put the frames in. We're doing the indoor frame first, and then we're going to do the glass frames for between the panes. So, quolls have a very thick coat covered in white spots. No matter which of the 6 species of quoll you look at, they will all have white spots. With eastern quolls, it can be either a light fawn colour or it can be near black. You can have both in the same litter. I do apologise, I've got cat's bell in the background, so I start cleaning when I'm recording. Yeah, of course, female quolls have a a pouch because they are marsupials. And within that pouch there are between 6 and 8 teats. They only become functional if the young attach to them. So eastern quolls, found through Tasmania, in rainforests, heathland, alpine areas and scrubland. They do prefer dry grassland and forest mosaics, surrounded by agricultural land so that grubs are readily available. Yeah, they're just very weird animals. So they're the same family as Tasmanian devils, but they're just bizarre. Generally, eastern quolls are quite solitary, hunting at night for prey. These include birds, reptiles, small mammals and insects. They've also been known to scavenge food from the much larger Tasmanian devil. They do also eat some vegetable matter. During the summer they will eat fruits, and year round they will eat grass as well. Eastern quolls are indeed nocturnal and spend the day resting in dens. They may also use crevices and tree trunks. The dens aren't elaborate particularly, it's just a tunnel with a hole. A hole in a tunnel and then a bit excavated at the end for nesting. Eastern quolls, though solitary, can form loose neighbourhoods. It's called a neighbourhood, I don't know why, but whatever, we'll roll with it. So we are probably going to add some more. We've only got 2 in each habitat at the moment. We will probably add some more. Or we'll probably have 4 in each habitat, or maybe 3. We shall see. Reproduction. Good God, just reading it, that's brutal. The female can give birth to up to 30 young, but only the first to attach to the teats will survive. Can live for up to 7 years in captivity, 2 to 3 years in the wild. They are of course endangered. In mainland Australia, it's thought that the red fox was the reason for that. The lack of the red fox in Tasmania has likely contributed to the survival of the species. However, feral cats are contributing to recent population declines, as are adverse weather conditions. And in mainland Australia, of course, it was declared extinct in 1963-64, and they've since been reintroduced to fenced wildlife sanctuaries. So things are on the up, hopefully. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting a caged roof on the sleeping area, or the behind the scenes area, and I go ahead and do the same thing above the rest of the habitat as well. Because quolls can climb, I don't want them to be able to touch the lights and the heaters what are going to be on the ceiling, so it's just a bit of a safety feature. Now here you can see I've done my custom background, and I'm also putting the wood chip flooring down and some climbing structures. I didn't see the need to do a completely custom climbing structure, so I just modified some of the in-game blueprints. Hopefully it looks okay. But yeah, one of the habitats I wanted it so the climbing was sort of highlighted, like, not enforced as such, but you couldn't really look anywhere but the climbing structure. And in the other habitat it's much more densely planted. But after seeing both habitats complete, I might come back and redo this habitat with some more planting, because it looks better, more natural, whereas this is slightly more man-made looking, slightly more constructed. Just putting the enrichment down. food, of course. Food and water, super important. Just making sure that they can access that, getting rid of the notifications. And we start putting some of the planting in. So we do go for native planting. We don't have any plants in there that shouldn't be in there. So we're looking at Oceania and tropical is what the Quoll. I nearly forgot the name of it then. Is what the Quoll is after. And grassland and temperate as well. Putting some of the new tropical plants in there from the tropical pack. How many times can I say tropical in a sentence? So it is the only Quoll species available as a mod, and it is the only Quoll species we will be displaying in the zoo, at least for the near future. I can't see that changing anytime soon, though. There isn't a major need for Quolls in Planet Zoo. Here we go, just going to start copying over this this roof, sorry. Do you know I can't speak today. Copying over this roof. And just making sure everything's in place. Everything lines up. Same at that side. And then just making sure it stays aligned to the grid. And then we just copy and paste. Pretty straightforward, that part. And then for this we just simply slide those poles back. And that one we just bring forward. Pretty easy. So I then raise everything up by one, simply because we need the extra space for the lights. So there needs to be a bit of space between the grate and the light and then the roof, which is what I've done here. So nipping over to the Bilby habitat now. This is my least favourite of the two Bilby habitats. So great bilbies, I've spoken about them before in a previous episode of Dunswell Zoo a very long time ago. Bilbies used to be very widespread. They're now restricted to very arid parts of northwest and central Australia. They're not often kept in captivity outside of Australia, and to be honest, I can kind of see why. You know, I'd love to see these animals in zoos, but in the UK, but I can see why they're not. So, generally solitary, sometimes may travel in pairs, nocturnal. They can live for 6 years generally, with some specimens reaching 10 years. Very short gestation period, so they breed easy. Blah, 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 blah. 3 joeys per litter and can usually have up to 4 litters per year. So they do breed very well then. The main threats for the Greater Bilby are livestock farming and ranching, invasive, non-native, alien species and diseases. However, the biggest threat is predation by introduced predators, such as foxes. Landscape variables also big impact on bilby distribution and population. Things like the fires, what were in Australia a couple of years ago, is listed as vulnerable. I would probably maybe say it was endangered personally, but vulnerable. And in Australia, it's an alternative to the Easter Bunny. So instead of the Easter Bunny, they have Easter Bilbies, which I think is quite cute actually, an Easter Bilby. So all I'm doing here is hiding the grass, because the Bilbies in the game have a grass requirement, but it just doesn't look like the habitat that they come from in the wild. So we hide as much of the grass as possible underneath this rockwork. And the idea is good, I'm just not a fan of the execution. I think there's too much rockwork and it looks too scruffy. So I will probably go back at another point and change that. The one next door, which I don't show in the speed build, but I will show you shortly, looks mild better. So hopefully we should get some breeding bilbies soon. Hopefully. So I was going to put another roof on, but then bilbies can't climb, so I thought, well, there's no point really, is there? So I just get rid of that in a moment. Add in some plants here, not many. Well, hello my friends, and welcome to the live section. So, lots to show you, and lots to bring you up to speed on. Some stuff I haven't shown on camera, other stuff I have. It was all over the place really this episode, but the focus was the Quoll. And that's where we're going to be wrapping things up. So, first of all, you would come through the doors. There's going to be a sign above the doors that says a night down under, and it's going to be like a little campfire and the moon and a starry night, and it's going to be in an animated style. I need to make that, so I'll do that at a later date. And then you would come through the doors, and you're in your first chamber, as I call it. So you got welcome to a night down under. You got the bats, even though there's no bats in here. You got the eyes in the bushes, sort of like, ooh, what we're going to see, spooky kind of vibe. And we have got some lights. They are set to a sort of dim grey colour. Same as all the glowing things, they're set to a sort of dim grey colour. Apart from the eyes, they're of course bright. And then let your eyes adjust. So nothing on this wall at the minute either. The material's probably going to stay the same. I like this wood, this stained wood. But the colour is probably going to change. Let your eyes adjust. I also really don't like that the J is taller than all the other letters in this font set. Like the L, the E, the T, the Y, the O, the U, the I. They're all the same size. And then you just get the J, which sticks out at the top and the bottom. That might need scaling a little bit frontier. So let your eyes adjust. Of course, you've got your eyes, and you would come through into the second chamber, which is a lot darker. There's less light bleeding through from here, obviously. And then we've got the artwork here, the gecko by John. What's his name? John. Is it John Gumbala? Let's have a look. It should just be there already. No. John Smith Gumbula. Yeah. So I'm going to put a little sign sort of underneath or to one of the sides. Just explains what it is. And then this billboard is going to have all the rules on it. I didn't want it to be this big. I only wanted it to go up to this railing here. But there isn't anything that size. It'd mean doing it in, I think it was 3 separate parts. So I'm just going to do it one big one and then keep editing it until it fits in this area. And then we'll hide this dead space down here. And then you go into your first hall, which would be the Greater Bilby. So we've got the first Greater Bilby habitat here. I didn't show this one in a speed build. So we've changed the inside material. It's now plaster, ready to be recoloured if need be. The walls are sort of adorned with a stone trim. A trim of stones. Rocks, technically, a rock trim. Got some different planting in here. It's very dry and scrubland like. Of course, got our 2 greater bilbies. Forage box enrichment. They have a much smaller stone structure than their bilby neighbours, and all the grass requirement that they need is hidden under here, as is their water and just some enrichment, just to encourage them to come back here. Obviously they're not going to be on display all of the time. And then we have the second greater bilby habitat, which is the one that I did show in the speed build. And this one's much more desert-like. You got the dead tree, very dry, lots of orange and yellow colours, and really sort of subtle earthy browns. And then at the back it's a bit more lush, the planting. But after building this one, I really didn't like this entrance area because you can see it from the guest perspective and you can see the wood at the back. It does take up an awful lot of room, and although the bilbies can explore under the rocks, as you can see here, you know, they have all this space. As really unrealistic as it is, they do have all this space because they have a grass requirement. So to keep them happy, this is where we've put it. I just don't like this rock formation as much as I do this one. I think this one works better because it just looks like one seamless piece, even though there's a gap what you can't see. It just looks like one seamless piece, whereas this one's very sort of janky, craggy bleh. And I don't like the tropical planting at the back. So we might change this one out at some point in the future. I will add it onto my list of habitats to improve. What else is missing from this area? The door, obviously. Benches along the back, and some education and conservation stuff on this wall as well. And then we go through the next door into the second hall, which is the eastern quoll. Again, it's missing a little bit of education here and there, and along this back wall some benches and donation bins, stuff like that. So this is the habitat I showed you in the speed build. We of course have our tiny quolls. There's a black and a fawn one in here, and there's 2 black ones in here. I do want 2 fawn ones, so I'll probably switch out that other black one and get a fawn one in. This of course being the fawn coloured quoll. So this habitat is more heavily planted than compared to the other one. There is still of course climbing enrichment that it's not quite front and centre, but it's definitely a good like third of the habitat viewing is the climbing structure. Got some enrichment down here, some leaf litter for them to rake around in. But yeah, I prefer this habitat to this one, so we might add some more planting to this one and get rid of this forage box and replace it with a tree forager. It just takes up less room. This is a lot of space for such a very small animal, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's all that's missing is the education. You know, we've got the boards, but the custom education's missing, the donation bins are missing. The reason for that is partly because I've just been very, very busy. I haven't had the time to just sit and do it. And the other part of that was this background, because I wanted a custom background, and it's a lot more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I followed Just Goron's tutorial. It works, it does work. I was struggling to get the right perspective and the right effect. So I put my own twist on it. Instead of doing like one massive image and then chopping it up into pieces, I just did individual pieces and stitched it together. And on the most part, it looks absolutely fine. There's one place on the entire board where you can see it's been stitched, and it's here. You see how the tree branch doesn't carry on, and there's a straight line that runs down the middle. That's the only place you can tell that it's been stitched. But from the guest's view at the other side of the glass, you can't tell. And I really like that. It is slightly blue in colour. That's because it is going to be a nocturnal habitat, but I'm going to do the roof last because it's going to make building everything easier doing the roof last. And because the quolls can climb, there's this mesh to stop them from reaching the lights, what are going to be on the next sort of level up. Yeah, that's the quoll habitat. Next time then, we are moving on to the kiwi hall, which is this one. There are some statues for kiwis, and need to put doors on the toilets and the staff area. And there's going to be 2 kiwi habitats, fairly decent sizes, also nocturnal. Everything's nocturnal in this bit, remember. But yeah, it just needs a little bit of fleshing out along the way. Either way, my friends, let's go ahead and hit play. Thank you very much for watching. Please remember to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. It really helps me out and helps the channel grow. That can only be a good thing. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at JW_YT. And of course the quolls disappeared. Until then, my friends, thank you very much for watching. Remember to stay safe, stay kind, and I shall see you all in that next episode. Bye for now.